September 6th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. And to introduce the commissioners: to my left, Commissioner Patton, Commissioner Radke; to my right, Commissioner Hayden, Commissioner Gagne, Commissioner Pasevich, our Secretary, Commissioner Raymond. We have with us this evening our Recording Secretary, Nancy King, Monica Holloway, the Zoning Enforcement Officer, and newly appointed City Planner, Robert Flanagan. Congratulations, Bob. My name is Jeff Fondley. I'm the Vice Chairman. Jerry Raffnell, our normal Chairman, will be out this evening, so I'll be the acting Chairman. Before we proceed with the agenda, Mr. Flanagan, would you enlighten us, please, on the new Connecticut Section 14-54, which is the certificate of approval that we have now been tasked with approving or not approving?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Robert Flanagan, City Planner, for the record. Direct commissioners to the electronic packet on their computers, or if they have a paper packet in front of them. We have a memorandum from the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, dated July 12, 2016. As the chairman alluded to, there's been some changes in the state statutes that have put the task of reviewing location approvals for motor vehicle uses in any municipality in Connecticut back in the hands of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Prior to 2006, this task was handled by this board 10 years ago. In 2006, an amendment was passed to the statute 14-54 that made the Zoning Board of Appeals in towns under 20,000 the reviewer of these applications, and in towns over 20,000, obviously a city which Bristol is, it went to the Zoning Commission. So in the last 10 years, we're not sure what happened, but someone in Hartford decided to change the law. I will comment also that we did not have any pre-notification of this. The planners group, from what I understand, the Bar Association, the zoning folks, and even the Council of Governments had no advance warning of this change in the statute. So it was brought to our attention, and we made the applicable changes to be in compliance with state law. So essentially what's happened is that this duty has now been put back in the hands of this board. This board, under Connecticut General Statutes 14-54, acts as an agent of the Department of Motor Vehicles. So you're not wearing your traditional variance appeal hat. You're wearing the hat of an agent of the Department of Motor Vehicles. There are some veteran members on the board that have done this already 10 years ago. So we'll just take it as it comes, and I'll be here to help guide you. But then again, getting back to the electronic packet, on page 3 we have a memorandum from the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, and I had sent this out mid-August to familiarize yourself with these changes. And everything I've just said just within the past few minutes is covered in that memo, the July 12th, 2016 memo from the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. If you flip to page 4, you'll see the changes in statute. If you're looking on your laptop, the changes are in red. The redacted areas are in red. The changes remain in the other copy. And then if you go to your electronic packet, page 5, Mr. Weiner, in his infinite fastidiousness, had saved the electronic file from 2005 for your old application. So I merely went in and updated it, put a new date on it, and converted it to a PDF. And we've resurrected, as it were, the form that you used 10 years ago. There's 2 pages to that form. And then on page 7 of your electronic packet, I went back to, just from my own knowledge, to see when was the last time that this board handled an application under 14-54, location approval, and it was at your January 4th, 2005 meeting. So some 11 and a half years ago was the last time you saw one of these applications, and I just highlighted the parts of the minutes that referred to that application so folks could get more familiar with that. And that's pretty much all I have. I'd be willing to take questions now, or we can just take them as they come. If anyone has anything they'd like to chime in with right now, I'd be happy to try to answer that question. It's a pretty straightforward process.
Any commissioners have any questions from Mr. Flanagan?
So just think of it as you're wearing another hat now. You have another duty. And I will comment also that based on some of the activity the zoning enforcement officer was getting in her office, you're probably going to have more meetings now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No questions? Now we need to vote on the...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a motion would be in order to adopt the application form and the fee as presented by staff. The chairman and I had vice chairman and I had a brief discussion this afternoon, this morning. If you want to revisit that at some point, we certainly can, but you have an application in front of you tonight. So based on the advice that I had from Chairman Raffanello, we decided to go ahead with the old form for right now.
For the record, Commissioner Gagne will sit on this. All right, do I hear a motion to adopt the application form and fee as presented by staff, revised July of 2016?
Second.
Do I hear a second? You guys have so moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, so moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
And chair votes aye. Approved. Okay, for the secretary to read the next application into the record, please step forward, give your name, address, and spell your last name for the record, please. Briefly describe your proposal, tell us why you need a variance, and explain your hardship. And for the record, Commissioner Gagne will sit on this application. Mr. Secretary?
Mr. Chairman, application 3662 requests a variance of maximum number of business or nameplate signs to allow for 2 additional signs at 110 Middle Street, Assessor's Map 33, Lot 98A, BHC Route 72 Corridor Business Zone, Darcie Roy, National Sign Corp applicant.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Becker, B-E-C-K-E-R, on behalf of Darcie Roy, National Sign 784 Red Road, Berlin, Connecticut. We're here tonight requesting 2 additional signs for the Aldi that's under renovation. I'm sure you've been by it and you have seen the renovations going on. Originally, before the renovations, there were 2 logo signs, one on the Middle Street elevation of the building and one on the Mountain Road elevation. And originally, those signs were 75 square feet each. Back in June, I believe, in August, the new logo signs are 46.6 square feet, and those have already been permitted under the regulations. But now they'd like to add the food market signs, one on each elevation, one on Middle Street and one on Mountain Road. These 2 signs are each 21.25 square feet. So combined, we're still less than what was originally there before the renovations started. And we're asking for them, first of all, it's quite a busy intersection at where that property is located. And it fits in with other properties in town, like the Walmart and Stop and Shop. I'm trying to look at all the other items. CVS, they all have their logo and then their method of business. And that's what we feel the food market offers. Did you have any questions?
Yes, you referenced the Stop and Shop, Walmart, plazas. They're under a different program than all these. They're allowed additional signage to they're over 40,000 square feet. Of all these is around, I think, 15,000 square feet. So that's why the difference.
Okay.
Now you have 3 signs there now, correct?
Correct.
Right. You're allowed 2 under current zoning regs. Probably that 3rd might have been predated, which isn't an issue at this point. But you do have 3 signs there now.
Correct.
Can I ask you, when did they start putting on food market on their signs? Because I travel a lot there around the state, and I usually see an Aldi sign, and I think Aldi's is synonymous with, a less expensive grocery store as it is. So I never really see a food market associated with their signage. And did they start putting that on?
We started doing it in early...
I'm sorry, you need to step forward and state your name and address for the record, please. Spell your last name.
My name is Bruno. My last name is Lourenco, Lourenco, and I'm a director of real estate for Aldi, located in South Windsor, Connecticut, 295 Wright Street, South Windsor, Connecticut. The food market has been part of our program since the early 90s. There was 3 stores that we opened in Connecticut around that time: Torrington, Bristol, Connecticut, and Waterbury, Connecticut, and Chase Ave, that do not have a food market. Those, since then, Torrington is being remodeled. Next year we'll have a food market. Waterbury, Chase Avenue has been remodeled, has a food market. Bristol is the only one in Connecticut.
Mr. Chairman, well, Mr. Lourenco is in front of the store, in front of the microphone. Can you just speak to the renovation? You're bumping out the front. You're adding 2,200 square feet of space. Can you just speak to that a little more?
Sure. The total store will be about 19,000 square feet, so we're adding an additional 5th aisle. Along with that, basically the only thing that's remaining of the store is the 3 walls and the roof. Everything else is brand new. So brand new refrigeration with the latest and greatest, brand new lighting, LED, brand new fixturing, brand new graphics. You will not recognize the store, obviously, when you enter into it. And it's a program that we're doing with all of our stores, our older stores in Connecticut and our region, which includes all of New England and Long Island, New York State.
And that was approved by a site plan from the zoning commission sometime in the latter half of last year, I think it was.
It was. We got approval quite a while before we started the actual renovation. This has been a process, a 2-year process with the city of Bristol that included meetings with town staff, included elevations and everything else to make sure that we were doing everything appropriately. This one is a little bit of a tight site, so there was a lot of things that we needed to do to make sure that the parking and the growth of the store worked.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Becker, can you state again what you perceive as a hardship? Having a difficult time seeing one here.
I know Mrs. Roy, on the application, it's really for identity, and...
I'm sorry, are you speaking to the microphone?
I'm sorry. What Mrs. Roy has written on the application is the food market signs identify the service being provided, and 2 signs are required due to the building's location on a busy corner. Originally, I believe we were trying to put them together so that it could be counted as one sign, to have the Aldi logo, the Aldi logo up above and the food market below, but that in other towns that has been perceived as one sign. So originally, I think we tried to do that, and that was not allowed. So that's why we're here asking, and it's, the layout has since been reverted back to the original layout of, 2 specific signs.
Mr. Flanagan, can you address that, please?
These were applications to Ms. Holloway's office, so I'll let Ms. Holloway speak.
Yes, they did come in for a building permit, for a sign permit, and when they came in, to me, it was 2 signs as one. So I had expressed that to Ms. Roy, who submitted the sign application, and they wanted to take the route to apply for a variance.
So just to get this clear, Ms. Flanagan, if the Aldi's sign was above and the food market was right below, that would constitute as one sign.
I'll defer to Ms. Holloway.
It was 2 signs.
That's constituted as 2?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, and again, you do have 3 signs there now, because you mentioned you wanted to have 2, you have 3, so it'll be 2 additional.
Right, 2 additional. Right. The third sign that you're speaking of is the freestanding sign out by the road.
Right, does that freestanding sign say food market on it, or no?
It does not.
So basically, food market, you're just trying to help with branding.
To help with the services offered.
Right, because for years I drove by and I had no idea what it was.
Right, and a lot of people don't know what it is. I mean, it's, granted, they've been around since 1990. I certainly know what it is. I shop there myself. But there are plenty of people that really have no idea what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yes, Commissioner Raymond, you were stating that the new Aldi's sign with the new logo and the food market sign together would be less square footage than
The original signs. It's
yeah.
much less than what's allowed. The allowed signage on Middle Street is 102 square feet, and we're asking for 68 square feet, just about.
On both sides?
On both sides, and the allowable amount of signage on Mountain Road is 182.5 square feet. So, we're asking for considerably less than that. And like I said before, it's less than what was originally there before the renovations. Each one of those signs were 75 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think Ms. Becker, if the commission would like to go to page 17 on their electronic packet, you'll see in color, you'll see the elevation on Middle Street depicted. And this is what the applicant is looking for. You have the traditional Aldi's emblem, and then to the left of that is the food market sign. And what Ms. Becker alluded to is that the total square footage allowed is that front facade. And it's her testimony that they're well below the square footage that's allowed, but the number of signs is exceeding the requirements of the zoning regulations. I'd also point you in the direction of, on page 18 of the electronic packet, I'm sorry, on page 19 of the electronic packet, this is the Mountain Road facade. And you'll see that there's an 182.5 square feet of allowable signage. And their proposal is for, again, the Aldi's emblem. And then to the right of that is the food market sign, which again, Ms. Becker's testimony is that it falls well below the square footage that's actually allowed. It's just the number of signs, not to be redundant.
Correct, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Flanagan, is the number of signs the same for both Middle Street and Mountain Road? You're talking about square footage is a little different on both roads.
The size of the store, the articulation of the building is different on both roads, but the site signage is we're talking about here.
Yeah.
What's allowed for the total site.
Okay.
the difference in amounts, because the Middle Street elevation is 102 feet wide, and the Mountain Road elevation is 182.5 feet wide. That's why the numbers are different. But the allowable amount of 1 square foot per linear foot of building is the same.
Right, but just keep in mind that it's the number of signs that we're really dealing with.
Have you, it sounds like you have other options available as well that you have been looking into in terms of, we talked here about how you can have the sign with the wording underneath that would have been considered as 2 separate signs doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is, rather than requesting a variance for 2 additional signs which would be on the building, is it something that you would put on the sign by the road and decrease the number of additional signs you would need? Are there other options you've considered?
I'd have to turn that over.
We designed...
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Please state your name again, just for the record.
It's Bruno Rankin.
Thank you.
We designed the building for the 2 building signs. We designed the building specifically for the 2 building signs based on what we understood it to be the city's position. So that is We would have done things differently because the building sign would have been significantly bigger, which was allowed. We didn't have that opportunity to do that.
Did you have a chance to meet with staff to discuss that, or
Yes.
at all? Or?
Yes.
Because it sounds like there's like a disconnect here.
Yes.
Yes, you met, and yes, there's a disconnect.
Yes, to both. There's a disconnect, and yes, we met.
So if I could just add a little color commentary here. Mr. Lorenko had met with staff prior to the last zoning enforcement officer being employed here. There were some, I wouldn't characterize them as reviews that were done, and the zoning officer left Mr. Lorenko with the impression that the signage that they had proposed would be allowed. He didn't get that in writing from the zoning enforcement officer. And I'll defer to Ms. Holloway. I don't want to speak for her. This issue was now presented to Ms. Holloway. She was not a party to any of those meetings, and she's looking at the regulations and this proposal with a fresh set of eyes, and it was her determination that these extra food market signs were not allowed. And again, I don't want to speak, but that's essentially what happened. It was reviewed under one set of staff, and then when it came time for approval, there was another set of eyes on the regulations and another interpretation.
That is correct.
Let me ask a question, Mr. Flanagan. If this was not a corner lot, how many signs would they be allowed for this building?
They're still limited to the amount of square footage they have that faces the road. So, I'm sorry, the number of signs?
Number of signs, yes.
Yes, 2 signs.
Just 2?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Since they have an additional sign, I can see why they need it, and I would imagine, I don't know, I don't see the big deal.
Any other questions for this applicant? Do you have anything else to add?
I think so.
All right.
Questions?
Being none, is there anyone else in favor of this application? Is there anyone opposed? Being that, do I hear a motion to close public hearing 3662?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Comments, gentlemen?
I'll just restate, because they have 2 sides, 2 separate roads, that the extra signage would be necessary. For one thing, it's uniform with the rest of their stores, and it identifies what that store is. It's a food market, so it helps with the branding of the store. I don't have an issue with it.
Commissioner Passage.
I have an issue with the additional signs. I know Bristol's starting to open up that corridor, on that Pine Street corridor where Bob's Chalet is being built. I'm sure there's going to be some newer stores going to be coming in. And I'd hate to set a precedence where we're going to be allowing additional signs on the buildings. I also think that the sign out front, the 3rd sign, I know they have a brand name sign there, but I'm sure they could probably have a graphic artist maybe tap into that sign near the road to add a food market to it underneath and make it one sign. So I would be against the additional signs.
Commissioner Raymond.
I think I agree with Commissioner Gagnon. Gagnon, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. You know, both, there's 2 signs, but they're less square footage than what's allowed. So, and I think, you know, I think most people don't even know what all these is, and I think this helps them justify their brand or you know, let people know what the store is. And I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is it's less square footage than what's allowed, and I think for me that's what kind of helps me steer it to that way. If it was over the square footage, I'd look at it differently.
Commissioner Radke.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of comments made as well. I can understand the name itself might not have a person drive by, realize what it is there. So I can see, and also with facing two buildings beyond a corner lot. It has the two signs allowed. It's just with this, in order to allow two additional signs, it already has a third sign there. And it sounds like there's other options that could be pursued as well that might have worked out better than this. But it's just the fact that the hardship, I can understand in terms of the branding, the name identification of the store. In terms of the options, there's options that they can still pursue that could minimize, reduce the variance. So for this, I have a difficult time trying to approve this at this point.
I agree with some of the comments. Again, I don't see the applicant presenting a valid hardship in this case. That's why I asked a second time, just to clarify the hardship, and there still isn't one, at least in my opinion. The characteristic of the property, the land, does not show that it is a hardship. They have 3 signs already. 2 is what's allowed, 3 is what they have, and that's fine. We're not making an issue of that. Like I said, I agree with some of the issues and the comments, but again, I don't see a hardship clearly in this case, so therefore I'm not in favor of this application. Mr. Secretary, I have a motion on 3662.
Mr. Chairman, before the Secretary speaks, I just wanted to interject. For any variance to be approved, it's a supermajority for at least 4 votes in the affirmative. Just wanted to get that into the record.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that application 3662, variance of maximum number of business or nameplate signs to allow for 2 additional signs at 110 Middle Street, Assessor's Map 33, Lot 98A, BHC Route 72 Corridor Business Zone, Darcie Roy National Sign Corporation, applicant, be approved according to the plans and documents submitted.
For your second.
Second.
Who did that? Dave. Okay. Commissioner Gagne.
Yes.
Commissioner Pasevich.
No.
Commissioner Raymond.
Yes.
Commissioner Radke.
No.
And the chair votes no. Application denied based on no valid hardship. Thank you. For the record, Commissioner Patton listed on this application. Mr. Secretary?
Mr. Chairman, application 3663 requests a variance for a maximum number of business, I'm sorry. I know, I moved up, I'm sorry. Application 3663, certificate of approval for a used car dealer license to allow for the sale, repair, and service of used motor vehicles at 497 Broad Street, Assessor's Map 39, Lot 71-4, BG, Business General Zone, Edward A. Redman, Trustee, applicant.
The applicant step forward, state your name and address for the record, please, and spell your last name. And
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt Mr. Attorney Tracy. Can I just interject, Mr. Chairman? So I just want to remind the board, apologize, Attorney Tracy, that you're wearing your 1454 hat, your Department of Motor Vehicles hat. This is not a variance, this is not an appeal, and you should view that application through that lens. Thank you.
thank you. That's why I stopped with the variance part. So if you can just tell us a little bit about the proposal. How's that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. William Tracy, 43 Bellevue Avenue, Bristol, representing the applicant and owner. I have some additional materials, if I might pass them out, that I think will help in your review of this.
Sure.
Thank you.
And as Mr. Flanagan so aptly stated, this is not a zoning determination per se. This is a specific determination under a motor vehicle statute that governs the location of repairers, new car sales, used car sales, and there's a similar statute that governs the location of gas stations. And so we're not here talking about the zoning regulations, although if the regulations themselves prohibited this use in this zone, that would be something that you'd have to pay attention to. The cases say that there are some very specific standards that you are to look at. You're to have you're determining the suitability of the location, and you're looking at reference to schools, churches, theaters, traffic conditions, the width of the highway, and the effect on public travel. And so what I've given you here, first of all, is an overhead shot of the location that is at 497 Broad Street. Many of you looking at this are going to recognize this was the former location of Redman's Trailers. And we're looking at an area, a parcel size that's just under an acre. It's in the BG zone. If we take a look at the surrounding area, we're probably looking at a block that's bounded by Broad Street, by Emmett Street, by the railroad, and by the Quavic River. All but one of the properties within that particular square are in the BG zone. The other one, and this is storage facility that's there, is actually in the industrial zone. Now, if we expand that circle a little bit, we're looking at an industrial zone on the other side of Broad Street, directly across from this facility. And to the east, to the west, of course, the old Bristol Brass complex, that's all in the industrial zone. To the east, there's a continuation of the BG zone, both sides of the street, and then farther down Broad Street into Forestville, we're back into an industrial zone. This particular property has a related history, and I've given you the determinations that have been made by the city in prior years. If we go back, the building was actually constructed in 1988. Before that, just before that, 1986, there was a variance that was issued for a used car dealership. So that variance goes with the property, continues. The variance had a specific limitation at the time of the number of cars. To deal with that issue, we're applying to the zoning commission for the special permit under current regulations. 1987, back when the Zoning Board of Appeals wore this review hat, it actually issued a certificate of appropriateness for a used car dealership on that site. And then in 1990, a variance for parking in the front yard. In 1997, there was a special permit that was issued for the display sales service of the trailers and the rental and leasing the trucks. That's when Redman's trailers came on. Now, the trailers and the rental trucks don't fit within the 1454 statute, so that would not have come before this board for a location approval. But it is a very closely related use. Because it is not exactly the same use as the used car and repair license that's being sought for this property, the Motor Vehicle Department wants a more current determination from the city about the appropriateness. And I did note that there was a case that was decided in the 1950s, and it actually was on a renewal of a license, where the Supreme Court indicated that once a suitability determination's been made on a property, that status should normally be expected to continue unless there's been some change of circumstance in the intervening period. Here, we don't exactly have the same continuous business, but reaching back to 1987, it was a different car dealer then, and then we had the intervening Redman's trailers. But there's a substantial similarity in the purpose. And in terms of change of circumstance, well, I think we all know that with the new Route 72 opening up, a large portion of the traffic that used to be on Broad Street has shifted over to Pine Street. And Broad Street is itself a lot less traveled. It's still a busy street, but it is a lot less traveled than it used to be. If we look around this property, we're going to see a number of automobile-related uses. To the northwest, just as you cross the bridge on Broad Street on the north side, is a general repairer and auto sales. Across the street from that, in the Martin & Son building, there is a repairer. 2-3 doors farther to the east on the same side of the street as Redman's property is an auto supply store that deals with painting supplies to the automotive repair industry. Around the corner on Emmett Street, there's an auto detailer. And farther up on Emmett Street, again, there's a collision repair and there's the RV sales. One of the things in the statute has to deal with relationship to churches, and there is a church on the corner of Emmett Street and Broad Street. Very nicely redone building, but you should know that the church was established well after many of the other industrial and business uses that were already in that neighborhood. Within the block to the south of this property, as it is for all of the properties on Broad Street in that block, is a large factory building. So there are some residences across the street. Some of those are in the industrial zone, have been for a very long time. The others are in the BG zone. Again, they've been zoned that way for quite a while. So we think in terms of the traffic conditions. Well, Broad Street used to be the main thoroughfare for Route 72. It handled that traffic, perhaps not as well as everybody would have liked over the years, but it did handle the traffic. Now it has substantially less. We think it's still going to be able to handle any additional traffic that is encompassed by this particular use over a vacant building. Certainly it handled the traffic to and from Redman's trailers over the years. The applicant is not proposing any change in the actual layout of the property. There are actually two minor changes that are proposed. There's a section of interior chain link fence that surrounded a former propane filling tank that is now gone. That fence is going to come down to allow for more room around the site. And the other one would be there would be some striping added to the parking lot to delineate the actual areas for customer parking and the showing of inventory. So we think that it's a very suitable location. It has been for some time devoted to a use for this purpose or a very similar purpose, and I would ask you to find it a suitable location. Be happy to take any questions.
Attorney Tracy, based on decision tonight, your next step is for a site plan?
We have filed already an application for site plan approval and for a special permit approval. The zoning regulation is a section 6B, 3C, and K make these particular uses special permit uses in that zone. So those will be on an upcoming zoning commission agenda.
Attorney Tracy, so there are going to be, the trailer's going to be gone. It's going to be strictly used cars?
The site is empty at the moment.
Okay.
Completely empty. The Redman's Trailers has moved out to what used to be Scaley's.
Okay. So there will be no trailers at all there?
No,
okay.
No. It's going to be used car sales and repair.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Ms. Flanagan?
Mr. Chairman, thank you again, Robert Flanagan, for the record, City Planner. I just wanted to point the board in the direction of on your electronic packet, page 24. This is the proposed layout that the applicant will be putting in front of the zoning commission, and this just gives you an idea of how they're going to utilize this existing site. I would agree with Attorney Tracy from a staff perspective. This use fits on this property and in this zone and in this neighborhood in particular. During the site plan review process in front of the zoning commission, there will be comments on this plan. So this plan will be fully vetted. You might want to just look at this plan as these are their aspirations for the site, and they want to show that the use will work and fit on the site. So again, you're reviewing this under Connecticut statute, General Statutes 14-54. Mr. Chairman, if I could just take a moment, I wanted to also thank Attorney Tracy. Again, we had no prior knowledge of the regulation changes, or I'm sorry, the statute changes. And 6 days into the new fiscal year, Attorney Tracy very gentlemanly walked into my office. We had a meeting, and he put the new statute in front of me. And I just wanted to thank him in public for doing that and for keeping us on the right track. We really appreciate it.
We thank you as well. Staff had informed me of the deed that you did, so we appreciate it. That saved us probably a lot of headaches down the road.
I should thank you for adopting the application form that we ended up filing, so that I could be here tonight. And I can't really claim prior knowledge. It was a matter of, I hadn't done one of these in a little while, so I thought I'd better look at the statute to figure out what I was supposed to be about. And I discovered the change. And I met with Mr. Flanagan, and he had something different that looked to be as current, so we dug into it and discovered that it was indeed a very recent public act that put this back in your bailiwick where it had been taken out of yours about 10 years ago.
Thank you. Any other questions for this applicant? Any more to add, Mr. Tracy?
No, I don't have. Thank you very much.
Is anyone in favor of this application? Is there anyone opposed? Being none, I hear a motion to close public hearing 3663.
So moved.
Wait a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I think it's a well-thought-out plan. I'm very familiar with the area. Redman's Trailers. Well, it used to be my propane stop, as a matter of fact. But no, the property fits for a car dealership. It was already a trailer dealership, if you really look at it that way. And it really fits into the area. So I would agree.
Commissioner Raymond?
I agree with Commissioner Brzezowski. It's, I couldn't have said it better. It was previously a used car dealership, and now it was a trailer dealership, and now it's going to be, if approved, it'll be a used car dealership. I don't really have an issue with it.
Commissioner Patton?
I agree. I think there's clearly precedence here. We have it here in writing that the city has approached this issue before, and it's been approved, and I can't see why we wouldn't do it again.
Commissioner Radke?
I agree with the comments as well. It had been passed, appears to fit in with the character of the area. I don't have any problem with this.
Chair agrees with the comments. Definitely is a good use for this existing business area. As shown in the past, all the examples as well too. Attorney Tracy brought out. Well familiar with the businesses and dealerships in the area. So I think it's a good use, and it's a well thought out plan. And I'm for this application as well for a certificate. Do I hear a motion on 3663?
Mr. Chairman, application 3663, certificate for approval for a used car dealer license to allow for the sale, repair, and service of used motor vehicles at 497 Broad Street, Assessor's Map 39, Lot 71-4, BG Business General Zone, Edward A. Redman, Trustee applicant, be approved according to the plans and documents submitted.
Do I hear a second? Second. All in favor? Commissioner Savage?
Aye.
Commissioner Raymond?
Aye.
Commissioner Patton?
Aye.
Commissioner Radke?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Application approved. Certificate approved.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have minutes from the June meeting. Commissioner Gagne will be on this application, on this approval process. Any comments on the minutes? Everything look all right? Being no comments, do I hear a motion to approve the June 7th, 2016 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Chair votes aye. Minutes approved. Okay, next on our agenda, nothing to be read into the minutes, just some letters from the last June meeting that the staff had sent out. Should be no issues on that. Thank you, Mr. Flanagan. I like that process. And see, we have some appointments here. Rick Raymond's been reappointed. Congratulations, Rick. And we have a new member with us this evening, Jeff Hayden. Congratulations. Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, you guys got in your packet a little blurb on hardship. Mr. Flanagan, I've been discussing this for the last couple of months, and he built this up for me. You guys had a chance to approve it. Ms. Flanagan, anything you want to comment on that before I continue?
No, Mr. Chairman, but if perhaps someone wanted to read it into the record, just so we have an understanding of it, I think that might be a good idea.
Yes, I agree. Mr. Secretary?
Definition of a hardship. A variance constitutes permission to act in a manner that is otherwise prohibited under the zoning regulations of the town. Therefore, an applicant must show that because of some unusual characteristic of the property, the strict application of the zoning regulations produce an exceptional difficulty or unusual hardship. A hardship is an unusual feature of a particular piece of property that prevents the landowner from making a reasonable use of the property in conformance with the existing zoning regulations. A hardship has nothing to do with the personal circumstances of the landowner. The fact that the landowner might be able to make a more profitable use of the land if it were not for the zoning regulation does not equate to hardship. When the Zoning Board of Appeals grants a variance, it must by state statute act in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the regulations and must give due consideration to conserving the public health, safety, convenience, welfare, and property values. In granting a variance, the ZBA acts solely with respect to the parcel of land having unusual conditions not generally encountered within the zoning district. That would make development in full accordance with the regulations extremely difficult. In legal terms, the condition must be such that a literal enforcement of the zoning regulations would result in exceptionally difficult or unusual hardships, so that in granting the variance, substantial justice will be done and the public welfare and safety secured. Financial considerations are rarely a valid reason for issuing a variance. Possible economic advantage to the landowner is not sufficient. In addition, the fact that the proposed use will not be detrimental, it may even be beneficial to the neighborhood, is not sufficient. The hardship must arise from the application of the regulations to the land and not to the landowner, and the land must be particularly disadvantaged by the regulation for which the variance is sought.
Thank you. So what I ask you guys, commissioners, is to just review this. I think it's something good for especially the newer commissioners to use. And again, every application is different, and we treat it as such. But this is a great guideline to start with. Now, Chairman Raffnell will be at the next meeting. We're going to discuss it probably a little more in depth, and maybe even make it part of the application process, depending on what we decide. But again, if I just ask you guys to review it, and just want to make sure we don't, really stray from, our task on this board. Ms. Flanagan, do you have anything else for the board?
I don't, Mr. Chairman, except to say that I'm within a day or two of accepting another application for next month. So I believe you will have a meeting next month. So we'll have this on the agenda for that meeting.
Thank you. And the last thing on the agenda was the updated Land Use Board member contact list. I think you all received that.
I handed out a hard copy this evening with the changes that you made, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Being no more business before this board, Commissioner Patton will sit on this. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.